talked to Joey Ayala yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And the way he looks at colonial mentality and nationalism will forever change the way I look at it. And if you want, you can watch that particular interview with myself and Ralph Chavez and Mel Libre. He was actually in Quezon City when he did the interview yesterday, and Mel Libre was in New Zealand. So it's just crazy how technology works, right?
Lagi.
Murag di gyud na mahitabo niya tong una, di ba? We can't even imagine it.
Yeah.
And we had some hiccups, of course. Kay technology, especially Wi-Fi here in the Philippines, isn't that
Yeah.
great,
yeah.
right?
Very
Challenging.
challenging. Yeah.
I don't know if this is related, but do you remember June Lozada? June Lazada? Lozada, but Lazada. Anyway, he was the whistleblower of the ZTE scandal. You remember that ZTE, the internet contract that was supposed to be signed, and it was supposedly to to attach or to give the entire nation, the Philippines, internet Wi-Fi. Do you remember that?
No.
You
no.
don't you don't remember the ZTE scandal, right? You don't remember that?
No, I don't remember.
Oh wow. Okay. So anyway, supposedly that deal a long time ago. How long ago was this?
Not sure.
That's why you're gonna click that, right?
Yeah.
So that you'll know when it was.
2012?
2012, a long time
Mm.
ago. This was supposedly a deal to give internet all over the country. And I was just, I'm just thinking, like, what would have happened if that deal pushed through? I'm just wondering.
Bitaw, no?
Yeah.
I
But
don't- I
you've
don't-
never heard of this.
No, I think I was focused on other things sa katong time.
Yeah. But like you would probably want to look this up because this was a integral part of our nation's history and what transpired and what happened. Anyway, the point is nga, it could have been that our Wi-Fi now would have been better if that deal pushed through. However corrupt that transaction was.
Do you really think that would have been the case? Like even with the corruption?
I don't know. I have no idea. I'm just saying that was a deal to give Wi-Fi access to the Philippines, and it requires an entire. It requires the government to give a nation good Wi-Fi, because the thing good with good Wi-Fi is it's a huge investment, and the major players of internet service here in the Philippines are the Globes and the Smarts and the PLDTs, right? But see, the thing is, it's still a huge investment, and no matter how rich the company is, the thing with Wi-Fi man good by is that maakuan mong nasugod madaan ba ma outdated ba, so you need to constantly update yourselves, and it's based on the gadgets that people have and all of that stuff. So ang flux sa cell phone technology is so fast. So ang investment sa usa ka kompanya basig outdated na dayon ba. So kuya, okay, so that's why even the we're always complaining about our Wi-Fi here in Tops, right? And even these big shot companies, they really can't invest so much, because they need to, before they invest on new technology, they want to make sure nga nakabawi ilang initially invest.
Yeah.
And sometimes ang shift from one technology to the next is faster than they can invest. So muna siya mahug mahinay ta, because the gadgets that we buy, we don't make our own cell phones, right? So magsalig yun siya sa the companies like Apple and Samsung and so on and so forth. So dili gyud siya bagay sa ato ang Wi-Fi. Hinay gyud, di ba? So kung naghimo patag kaning telepono, siguro nga kita mismo ang naghimo, basig mo bagay pa sa ato ang Wi-Fi signal diri sa Pilipinas. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe, pero I heard na even in the States they still complain about ang
But
Wi-Fi speed there.
Well, I would say, but just like anything, speed is relative, Raman, right? Just like like what is good life, it's also relative.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
ilang i-complain dito is because it's slower than what is expected, but they're slower there is still faster here.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
definitely.
also of course the costs that right, di ba mo ginato ang usam ta sa
Mm.
pinakamahal kuno og Wi-Fi diri sa Asia. Right? Did you
Mm.
hear that correctly?
No, no, I did
Did
not
did you
hear
read
that
about that?
actually.
I think
No.
we're one of the most expensive Wi-Fi in Asia. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? So
Kuyaw.
anyway, if that deal, the ZTE deal would have pushed through corruption and all, I don't know if it would have changed our Wi-Fi here in the Philippines. Of course, as promised, we're gonna talk about atong tukiun ang kaning this word corruption
Mm.
and it's all over the headlines now,
Yeah.
all over the country, di ba? Kaning corruption, especially with what happened with DPWH, o
Yeah.
katong gitawag nila og mga ghost projects o kanang mga proyekto nga mura og substandard ang materyales nga gigamit and so on and so forth.
Mm.
But I think before we go on a deep dive of this phenomenon, let's call it the phenomenon called this social ill called corruption.
Mm.
Let's define the word first. What is corruption?
Well, corruption, according to sa atong dictionary definition, is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain, a broad definition that applies to both public and private sectors, encompassing bribery, fraud, embezzlement, nepotism, and other mga dishonest nga acts. It involves somebody with authority, either in business or government or other institutions, misusing their position to obtain personal benefits, which can be money, favors, or other advantages, ultimately undermining public trust and public interest.
So is the word corruption only applicable to the public or public trusts or public institutions, or can you also be corrupt in the private sector?
Yeah, definitely. You can also be corrupt sa private sector po. Kay even in business na ay mga gitawag mga corrupt practices like fraud, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just say kanang gitawag nila og bribery kay mo to usa sa mga
Mm-mm.
gihisgutan sa ato ang mga news outfits, di ba? Katong bribery involving
Katong
the
contractor.
Congressman Leviste, if I'm not mistaken, right? That very young congressman, he looks like he should still be in school, right? Did you see him?
Yeah,
He's so young.
katong-
He's so young looking. He's
the one who reported the contractor lagi.
yeah, he's actually the son of former late Governor Leviste and Senator Loren Legarda. Anyway, ang gihisgutan nato is it was a public trust man to, di ba? Kaning mura man to contractor, di ba?
Oo.
Unya ang nahitabo was ang gigamit sa contractor was substandard materials, di ba? And involving to siya og bribery, di ba? Somebody was given who was given I think 3 million, right, based on the computation of 10% or whatever, right? Anyway, the point is nga somebody was given money as a kind of commission, di ba? Unsa man kaning murag kickback, di ba? Ang akong pangutana ba is this, kato siyang kanang nga practice ba kan tagaan og porsyento bitaw ang ano sa man ang congressman, ang engineer, whatever, right? In the private sector, that's called commission, di ba? Di ba? For example, you know, like mo nakaibaligya, di ba? Nami yun na commission, di ba?
Yeah.
Ikaw makabaligya kag whatever, makabaligya kag airtime, di ba? Na may commission, di ba? Radio
yeah.
spots, na may commission, di ba? Makabaligya ka og auto sa mga salesman diha, na sila commission, right?
Yes.
So kanang commission, that's a common practice. Diba? In fact, that's not just a common practice. That is a kind of the law, diba? In the private sector, nagay kay
Yeah.
commission, kay nakabaligya og uga, diba?
Yeah, lagi.
So, kung imo nang i-translate sa public service, illegal na siya kay you're not supposed to make money off of a transaction, diba? Because kung naay kay kwarta nga makita sa usa ka kontraktor, pasabot niya na is na kay murag posible nga imuang i-substandard ang kuan ang materyales or apekihon og trabaho kay ganahan makalusot na kay para makakwarta ka, di ba?
Oh, para maka sa sunod nga project
Oh,
makakuha na
so
pod ka.
para dili ka mabias,
Mm.
supposedly, I'm not sure if that's the intent of the so-called law nga dili ka makadawat og anything from the contractor uh, para dili ka bias sa transaksyon, di ba? For example, imong parente, imong amigo, tag-iya sa construction company niya,
Mm.
unya mo recommend yung gana niya kay kaila man nimo, di ba?
Mm.
Right? And that actually is I would say normal, di ba? Kinsa man imong i-recommend kuno Ralph be o atong mga kaigsunan diya kung na kay naay trabaho nga ipabuhat ang magmo-recommend kag tawo nga wa ka kaila, di ba?
Oh, bitaw.
So imuhag yung mga kaila. Kinsa man
Yeah.
yung mga kaila nimo, di ba?
Usually ang mga amigo.
Imong mga amigo, mga parente nimo kaila gyud kaila gyud na nimo sila, di ba? Kaila gyud
Lagi.
ka silang karakter, so imo gyud just lang i-recommend.
Mm.
So para malihayan nga walay bias, kinahanglan walay komisyon, di ba?
Mm.
Is that the intent pa? Nganong ang public sector dili man maka-enjoy sama sa private sector nga naay commission? Tanaw nimo, what do you think is the intent of that?
I don't think necessarily bias is the correct thing they're trying to avoid. I think what they're trying to avoid is kanang an incentive for people to be dishonest yani, and
An incentive to be dishonest.
mm-mm.
I please expound. I cannot understand. But
Like
what do you mean?
when you say what you're thinking of, like when it comes to like trying to avoid bias when it comes to like
Transactions.
transactions.
Contracts.
Oo. It's not necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily bias, but kung ma-incentivize man din ang bad behavior basta kung if mahibawan nila nga maka-profit sila sa kaninga transaction, then they're going to be incentivized to maximize their profit anang transaction. And that's not necessarily bias, but
Maximize, right? So
Mm-mm.
pasabot nimo nga they have control over the transaction
to an if
Kung-
they to a certain extent, if
because
they have
kanang kontrata makit-an man na gud sa kuan sa ibid man na siya, di ba? So
Mm,
makit-an
yeah.
ka nga mo ni ako ang ibid ani niya, di ba?
Mm.
Let's just say X amount, right?
Yeah.
200 million, whatever. So makit-an siya unsay what the deal is all about, di ba? In terms of material, in terms of duration of work, and and so on and so forth, di ba?
Yeah.
So unsa may labot niya na sa let's just say sa congressman or so whoever's in charge of approving the contract.
Well,
Unsa may incentive niya to manipulate.
Well, if madako nila og maayo ang bid, madako nila og maayo ang budget, nasalay
Incentive nga mo dako ang budget.
yeah, nasalay
Okay,
incentive
but
to
the bigger
increase
the bigger the budget is the bigger the commission, di ba?
yeah, the bigger the budget, the
Mm.
bigger the commission. So ang buhaton nila ana is maghimo sila og mga what do you call this, mga shell companies ba ang tawag ana, kadang mga dili necessarily legitimate nga companies just to be able to place a bid higher than the bid before.
Yeah, or in the case of katong kang sa Bulacan, di ba? Mo tong Liviste sa Bulacan mo to siya. Ang Liviste.
Wait. Batangas?
Batangas. In that case, katong very controversial nga contractor, katong mga sa to sila plido to nila. Vizcaya sa to, something like that. Anyway,
I think sa lain na po
Lain-
area, di ba? Naglibog ko actually sa Doha if
if they're related to that, I think they may or may not be, but ang gibuhat nila is they're the same characters, the same personalities, but naghimo sila lain nga construction companies. Lain. So dili to sila, in a way they're not yet in politics, because I think one of them tried to run for mayor against Vico, di ba?
Yeah.
And did not win, di ba? Pero most na ibuhaton nila maghimo sila daghan nga construction companies para makabid sila og daghan, di ba? So but the bigger picture here is nganong ni persist magina. This is a I would say a specific example, di ba? Pero this has been going on. This problem of corruption has been going on for a long, long time. Unya naagi mga politiko nga mo supak, mo reveal, mo mo kaning mo mga whistleblowers nga magawas. Like I said, katong 2012, di ba?
Mm.
Dugay na kay to tanan, na priso pa kay to si June gali.
Yeah.
And you know, you can go back as far as you can remember, and there's always corruption. But di gud siya mawagtang, right?
Yeah.
Di gud siya mawagtang bay. Unya you know, like it's good nga naay mga congressman, mga politiko, mga private individuals nga nag-complain, nagprotesta, nag-file og whatever kaso, pero anong di mo gini mawagtang niya? What makes you think nga in this time, in this case nga mawagtang ni siya? Unsa may tan-an nimo ba ngano man good ni nga dili mo gina mawagtang ang corruption sa gobyerno?
Mm.
Tan-aw nimo. Can you give us maybe like a historical perspective? When was this word first used? Kanang corruption, etymology of the word corruption. Asa man ni gyud gikan ang corruption? Ngano man di mo siya mawagtang? You kind of reminds me of one saying that I can't forget. Good. Ayun siya nga, somebody once said, I just forgot who said it nga, it's only corruption if you're not part of it.
Mapriso ka.
It's only corruption if you're not part of it. Kuno.
Oo.
Mo na mga bagot-bot lang ka kung wa kay labot. Kung
Okay.
dili kuwang siguro ang kuan, kuwang siguro ang lagay siguro mo nang ni bagot-bot lang ang ubang tao siguro.
Lagi.
Kamayara na be. Unsa man gyud ang corruption nganong di mo gina mawagtang asam na gikan nga word niya kado sa man na siya first used. Go ahead.
Well, if we look at the etymology of corruption, it comes from the Latin corrumpere, meaning to break, destroy, or spoil. Yeah, it was first used in English in the late 14th century through the Old French corrupt.
Corrupt.
Corropt.
Mm.
Initially referring to something debased, ruined, or morally deteriorated,
Mm.
and later encompassing the sense of dishonesty and bribery.
Mm.
So, kung ano siya, start off jud siya as being for you to be able to say na something is destroyed or ruined or deteriorated. Mm. So, I think mo apply it really does
14th
apply, no?
century ni siya, 14th century.
Mm-mm. Yeah, in the sense of politics, it's supposedly there's supposed to be a level of trust that we have sa atong politicians, pero deteriorate siya.
Unsa may tan-an mo ba? What's your theory? Why do you think that corruption persists? Why is it one of the oldest games in town, right? Ngano man ni siya? Nganong because of course there will always be dishonest people and there will always be people who will accept bribes, right?
Yeah.
But ngano man ni siya nga sa uban nga kultura, sa uban nga mga nasod, dili man kay ni siya as prevalent, I would say,
Yeah.
as ours. I actually wanted to bring it up yesterday with Joey Ayala. Is it because partly of our colonial masters nga na-colonize ta og rather corrupt culture like the Spanish culture maybe, or the American culture or the Japanese culture, our colonizers? Does it have anything to do with our past, our colonial past?
I think it definitely does have something to do with our colonial past, and it's more so the culture that was set in the colonies rather than greater Spanish culture. But it was just like I believe kanang saying gani na lang absolute power absolutely corrupts.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Is that what you
Ay,
mean?
corrupts
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
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 kana kana
Mhm.
yeah, kana nga saying. I think it's because they had ang kanang ang atong colonial masters, the people who were put in charge of the Philippine colony. They had so much power over us nga they couldn't help but want to abuse that power. Kana nga kan gani, and that's kind of like set the tone for a culture of corruption nga na diri sa Pilipinas. And besides that as well, I also think nga human beings are inherently self-centered. So almost everything ginabuhat nato, it's for our own benefit most of the time. And because of that, mo translate yapon siya when you go into public office. I mean, even even in a way you can even view ang kaning mga anti-corrupt politicians in a way nga kuan they're doing it because it serves their personal nga policies, their personal beliefs nga corruption is bad, therefore I want to act out on eradicating corruption. In a way it's self-centered but to the benefit of others as well.
Yeah, you're right. Mura man na siya, that's the parang gid nako, that's the easiest thing to accuse somebody of. You know what I mean? Because corruption could be anything, right?
Yeah.
And corruption man good has real life repercussions to the individual. So ang mentality sa mga tao, correct me if I'm wrong, is kung nangawat ang usa ka politiko, ako aunta ng kwarta, ako aunta ng amo aunta ng daan, amo aunta ng serbisyo sa gobyerno, di ba?
Yeah.
Instead quote unquote gikawat sa usa ka public official, di ba? So murag it's easily translatable ba? Murang siyang effective kay na siyang atake. It's people have been accusing people of corruption forever. From the beginning. Just my goodness, like so many like sige lang korap dihan niya waag yun nahimo, waag yun nabuhat, sige lang gyapon tag korap. So di ko kasabot ba ngano man kuwang ra ang atake sa corruption, kuwang ra ang matino nga mga tao, kuwang ra ang matong mga balaod, ingon sila nga daghan makitag mga balaod kuno nga insakto nga makapakgang gyud og corrupt practices, pero nganong naa pa mangyapon ng corruption ngan tan-aw nimo nganong di mo gid na siya matangtang, nganong di mo gid na siya mawagtang masking naay mga tao nga mo sumpaki mo makigibisog alang sa kinabag-an nga wala nay corrupt practices, pero naa man gyapon ngano man na.
Well, if I had an answer to that, then I'd share it with the world.
Kamo diha unsa may tan-aw ninyo ngano man ning di mo gini mawagtang ang corruption be? Tabangi ko na mo diri nganong dili mo gini siya mawagtang unya. And I have a stupid idea. I say stupid because people laugh when I bring this up, right? People just give me the how about in the same way nga certain parts of the world, let's just say marijuana is legalized. The reason for legalization is for control, di ba? Kung ato lang i-legalize di ay. Ha? Para makontrol na to, ha? Legalizing corruption. Nala siya say for example, kada transaksiones ang allowed for corruption is only, let's just say 10% na gyud. Ha? 10% na gyud bay. Ha? Pero kung mula pa og 10%, pwede na ka mapriso. Pero kutob ra gyud diha. Kakuan ka? So nabay kay di ba mo man the essence of that's the rationale in some parts of more liberal democracies and cultures, di ba? Nga illegalize sila ang drugs para makontrol, di ba? Para makontrol, di ba? So kung dili gini miwagtang ang corruption, ato na lang illegalize para makontrol nato, di ba? Para kani siya ang atong kontrata, let's just say 200 million, unya ang allowed for corruption 10%, so kuhaan lang 10%, inyuhan lang na. You know what I mean? And maybe ang ang because of this control measure naapoy reward or award ang usa ka LGU or usa ka politiko nga close to zero ang iyang corruption, meaning to say he never availed of the 10%. You know what I mean? Naay legal maximum nga 10%, but kung zero corruption ka, then the LGU will receive an award, maybe ang incentivization siguro based on the assumed 10% corruption. So ihatag na nimo ang 10%, ibalik na nimo ang 10% kung zero corruption ka. You know what I mean? That sort of thing ba? We don't even have to call it corruption because corruption has a bad word. Maybe like for the boys, for example. Right? For the boys or for the girls, whatever.
10% for the boys.
Something like that. What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on legalizing something so that you can control it? Kaya di mo gid siya mawagtang, di ba? Kung di gid na mawagtang nga butang, nganong pugson mo ginato, nga di mo gid na mawagtang, so pangitahan natog paagi nga makontrol na lang nato. Di ba? Tanaw nimo. What do you think of that idea?
I think I used to be a very strong proponent for kana nga concept lagi. legalizing something aran makontrol na to.
Mhm,
And that
mhm.
was part of my my belief when it came to drugs.
Okay, okay.
And I used to firmly believe that until just recently.
Mhm. Nganong nausab man imong panghuna-huna about
Mm.
legalizing things that are so prevalent that it's already part of culture, so
Yeah.
we can control it. What's wrong with that mentality, Day?
Yeah, well, apparently in theory, nindot siya, but in practice, it's really hard to achieve, especially given the fact nga the criminal underworld is already super rich, super powerful. So ang nahitabo sa US, for example, like they ilang legalize ang weed. So we had like legal farming of weed.
Mm-mm.
Pero ang expectation ato was that it would decrease ang amount of illegal plantations. Pero
Well,
that
I think the rationale for legalization of weed in the states was it's not as harmful as people think it is. In
yeah,
fact, it's
yeah.
less harmful versus cigarettes and other drugs
Yeah,
and alcohol, right?
Yeah, and it's been used in medicine in the
So
past.
so I think
Pero
that was the I think that was the main
yeah,
argument
the
for
main argument.
legalization, diba?
Yeah, and
Not control, right?
yeah, no, pero part of it was that part of it was that argument that we'd be able to also as well kind of control it, and if we legalize it, we would be able to kill the illegal market. Pero
Yeah.
that didn't happen. In fact, the illegal market took advantage of the legalization of marijuana in the U.S. and
How can you take advantage of it?
they set up their own farms in the U.S. instead of like growing it
Correct. Yeah,
somewhere else.
because it's legal, right?
Yes, instead
So
of
what's
growing it somewhere
yeah.
else, where it is illegal. And yeah, they set it up in the U.S. and they set up so many of them that they're unlicensed farms because
Well,
you need a license in order to go on.
that's another problem. That's nothing to do with the legalization of weed. But
No,
okay,
where it's part of the problem nga kan. Even if you try to legalize it, I think
what I mean by that's a business permit problem. That's not a legalization of weed problem, right?
No,
Because
pero-
if something is legal and there are ways to set up a business, let's say for example, you open a store that sells cell phones, right? So you have to have a kind of control for that. If you set up a factory for cell
Yeah,
phones,
yeah.
so if you set up a legal business, then of course there are rules to be followed.
Yeah,
So
mga
that,
permits.
that and permits and all of that stuff. So if for example weed is legal in your place, niya paghuman imuhang ni violate ka sa laws of the legalization of this particular business, then that's the problem of the implementation of the law, diba? Right? So
Siguro-
how was it abused in such a way that it's different from usual abuses
of business.
of businesses
No.
or entrepreneurs?
No, pero ang main point of that I'm trying to bring up is the fact nga even if it's legalized, it's still going to be abused.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
so,
But at least everything is always subject to abuse. That's
yeah.
a fact of life, right?
Yeah.
So just like any business, kung illegalize mo ang let's just say weed, for example, then of course it's subject to abuse. But see, the thing is, at least na kay kind of control, right? Compared to all bets are off, right?
Pero
Because
I
the
think
problem with making things illegal, I'm by the way, I'm not pro or con. I don't have any feelings for weed because I've never tried it. I did a long time ago. It was really bad weed that it didn't affect me whatsoever. It was like, what the hell is this, man? What did you give me? Hopas ka to, hopas. This is a long time ago. Anyway, so yeah, the point is nga kung dili siya i-legalize, kung illegal siya, it's exclusive to the underworld. It becomes like something on the dark side of town, diba? It's not something
yeah.
that's in the forefront, diba? So dili ni manggawas ang mga tawhana, diba? So they're all and then it's going to be very expensive and all of that stuff and so on and so forth. So what you're saying is that your argument for legalization of anything, because you want the rationale for it being to be able to control it, is flawed because it will still be subject to abuse.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
and
you're saying.
Yeah, and the legal weed market is actually losing to the illegal weed market in the U.S. right now. So they can't keep up with.
Ngano man?
they've gone.
Nga naman, nga,
One thing that
let me just premise it so that I can understand your answer better.
Mm-mm.
Legal versus illegal. Ang legal, sayon. Ang illegal lisod, di ba? So nga numan nga ang illegal may nooy nakalamang sa legal. Pasabta ko nga numan nga the environment of society is making it difficult for the illegal to flourish and making the legal flourish. Nga numan, how does that work?
Actually baliktad siya. Ang illegal mas sayon compared sa legal
Time
because
out. Ang in society when there are laws, ang legal masayon. Kay legal man siya, di ba? Ang illegal lisod kay na may pulis mo bantay nimo nga di na mao. So ngano man giunsa man pag-unsa ang mga balaod sa usa ka syudad, sa usa ka nasod, ang mopabor mahinoon sa illegal kaysa legal nga masayon man. Technically ang legal kay wala may problema, dili magadakpon. Kung illegal dakpon ka, di ba?
lagi.
Kana lang dapita diha. Kana dakpon legal, dili dakpon ang illegal. I'm sorry, nabali. Dakpon ang legal, dili dakpon ang legal, dakpon ang illegal. Nganong kana nga environment nganong makalamang manhon ang illegal.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be on paper. Pero one thing that I guess they weren't able to think about ahead of time is the fact ang kaning mga illegal nga growers, they've already had a huge advantage because they've been growing it for a while. They have bigger plantations compared to kanang mga legal growers kay mga small time man ni sila, mga small time farms. So they have greater control of supply ang kaning illegal nga market of
Greater control of supply. Okay. Okay.
yeah, and besides that, mas tinood nga mas lisod sila mag-sell. Pero they've been doing it for a while. So they have the
So
strategies for that.
this is an implementation problem, right?
I don't know. I don't know if implementation problem jud siya, but
I don't understand what are you what are you disagreeing about when it comes to implementation problem?
kuan
Kung
we've seen what I'm trying to say is
kung
we've
dili
seen
siya
it in
implement
practice.
kung dili siya implementation problem, what is it man di ay?
Well,
There's a law, and if you're not implementing it right, then ay makalusot, right? That's implementation problem, right?
Yeah.
So what is your disagreement? Why do you say it's not an implementation problem? So if it's not an implementation problem, what is it?
okay, probably if by implementation you mean ang pag-police sa kaning mga kan.
What else is implementation, right?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Then probably that's one aspect to it. Per I think it's a multifaceted
Yeah.
problem.
So if it's not an implementation problem, what is it?
It's a mixture of the fact that police are having a hard time double checking
Implementation problem. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a mixture
yeah,
of
check.
that.
Oh, okay. And what else?
Implementation. Ang illegal growers, they sell their products for a lower price than legal growers.
Okay.
Because they have to adhere to taxes and all that and legal regulations, so they have to try to up their price so they can break even. Illegal sellers don't have to do that. So there's a disadvantage na when it comes to selling products.
Pricing.
Pricing.
Okay.
That's another aspect to it. And I think those are the two main problems
Yeah.
that I see.
Yeah. So ang problema sa illegal buyer, illegal seller is if a person buys it, will that be considered an illegal merchandise or no?
Kanang sa
Ang buyer bang buy?
Ang
Kung
buyer,
mapalit ka og illegal source, does that also make you liable?
actually dili na ko sure sa law sa US if
Anyway,
purchasing is
nahisgot me aning pot, not because we're potheads. We're far from it. We the only pot that I have is kaang sayuta. Kaang sa tanom de. I mean, and that tanom is an ornamental plant, not a marijuana. Is legalization of corruption an option so that we can control it? So, ang atong problema stems from our inability to implement the laws, di ba?
Yeah.
And that's why there's still corrupt practices until now, di ba?
Yeah.
So, legalizing it ideally should be able to control it, right?
Should, yeah.
So, but if it's not that, we've tried so many things, right? What do you think is another way to curb corruption? Tan-aw nimo. Do you have any suggestions, guys? While you're thinking about it, atong mga kaigsuonon diha nga naminaw, join us in our conversation. We need your help, guys. Let's talk about corruption. Ang atong gisgutan unsaon man aside from legalization of corruption, nga mapakgang, ma-minimize na to niya. Minimize lang, dili lang mahunong. Ma-minimize na tong corruption. The reason why my suggestion is legalization is that we can control it. Right? Kung dili mo gina siya, kung omnipresent na siya, dili gina siya mawagtang, ato na lang pagamyan. Diba? At least it's closer to zero than ato lang ipadayon. But if you think about it, nana mo yung mga laws good. Nana yung mga laws against it, nga nang magpadayon mangyapon na siya. So, I guess if there are already safeguards and then it still doesn't work, legalization of it will still not work, right?
Yeah.
Because nana may laws,
Yeah.
right? So unsaon man nato pag-usab ni diay na siya kaning Ralph atong mga kaigsuonon di tabang economy. Tops Media Center are we on YouTube?
Yes, sir.
On TikTok, Tops Media Center, also on Facebook, Tops Media Center. I-comment ko na inyong mga suggestions ko na. Saan man na ito pagpakgang ning korupsyon. We're having a very ambitious conversation. We are trying to, at the end of this conversation, do what no man has ever done before, and that is stop corruption, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, what are your suggestions, aside from my stupid suggestion of legalizing it? Go ahead.
Well, my best guess, dude, when it comes to kaning solving corruption is ang
Curbing lang ba? Curbing.
curbing, not necessarily solving.
Ay lang pang-ambition ba?
Oh.
Ay lang pang-ambition.
Reduce na lang.
Reducing na lang.
Oh.
Minimizing. Saan man na to be?
It's most definitely ang kaning mga double checking our laws para we can get rid of
Double
one.
checking. What does double checking mean?
Or rather reviewing. I-review na to atong laws para makita na to ang mga loopholes. Because excuse me, ang kasagaran man dito sa corrupt practices that are still ongoing in the Philippines, it's because na ay mga legal na loopholes.
Ito may legal loophole nakit animo.
Naman to'y gidiscuss man tayo sa kaning isa ka kailan ako nga he took up accounting and then basically na ay gimension ang ilang professor nga there's this weird nga sa taxation gani nga if there's a way gani to lessen your taxes, you just have to I forgot ang sa tong term nga iyang giingon sa ako kalimutan ko for it was about taxation. And
what about taxation?
Naman to'y
why did he consider that a loophole?
Yeah, basically there's two like wait
so what's your suggestion on how to curb corruption?
Well, for one thing, ang kaning mga katong loopholes, and also what do you call this, naay mga unintended some laws have kaning gitawag na to nga mga unintended consequences nga sometimes when you try to bottleneck something, ang mahitabo is you just end up creating more of the same kind of problem. So some I don't know which laws should, pero it's just some political theories I've heard online said nga when it comes to bottlenecking certain what do you call this in business endeavors, I believe is one thing, is that you will incentivize certain businesses to engage in corruption as well, so that they can what do you call this safeguard their profits. That's another theory I've heard online when it comes to corrupt practices. Sometimes because of certain laws na ay unintended consequences, people are pushed towards corrupt practices because it helps them maximize their profits. And
Isn't what do you mean, Max? Isn't that the purpose of business, is to maximize profit?
Yeah, and that's why sometimes like trying to restrict businesses too much can result in them like starting to bribe officials para dili sila maapilan na ng law and something like that. Dili sila ma-reviewhan or something along the lines of that.
So how do you phrase that into a solution. Like, what's that? What do you call that?
Ah, yeah.
This looks like just implementation again, right?
Yeah, implementation,
Eh,
like,
eh,
or at the very least, we need to, because there's a lot of people who complain gani about how weird our laws can be structured.
mm,
So a review of them, and then maybe a fine tuning of our
mm,
laws.
mm.
Monang kan, I
You
think
know,
realistic.
a friend of mine who already died a long time ago once told me, this is he's like a he's more like a she. She told this was she told this in a group conversation in a cafe. Ba hingin siya nga, bay sige tag story about corruption. Sige mong story ng corruption, right?
Mm-mm.
Kuna-una ako no, kung naay 10 million pesos, 10 milyones na sa imuhang mga kamot. Wa ka kibawasan nagikan, why nakhibaw nga nana nimo unsa may buhato nimo. That's what he said, but he was giving us a moral question ba.
Mm-mm.
Like there's 10 million pesos that was maybe for you. You don't know where it's from. Nobody knows that you received it, that you have it, right? What are you gonna do about it, right? Like he was asking us in the room,
Mm.
and you know, it's a strange moral question, right? Like nobody knows about it. You know, I don't know where it's from. It's there. Of course, the logical thing would probably be kung if you found it in a room and kinsa man di ba? Montana jud kay that's huge amount,
Yeah.
but you know nga it's for you. Nobody knows that it's with you. But some people would not be able to resist.
The
That's
temptation.
that's
Yeah.
life changing money, di ba?
Yeah.
Right? Now, for example, ikaw kita diri nga murag you know like like we're living painfully middle class lives, right? right? So kita I mean we've never had to face that moral question, di ba?
Mm-mm.
Pero kung nanas tubangan nimo, like kasi kausa lang gud. I don't know, man. Like you know what I mean. That should certainly cross your mind, right? Because
Yeah.
because nobody knows
Yeah.
about that 10 million pesos in front of you. Nobody knows that
Yeah.
you have it, right?
Yeah.
So it's still a difficult question, no matter how easy you think it is, and we've never actually had to face that question. So if you're in power, naman good, if you're up there you'll have those moments.
Mm-mm. It's easy to talk about it when you're not walking in those person in
Yeah,
that person's shoes.
yeah, you're not in that room, right?
Mm-mm.
So it's quite tempting ba, but part of that magod one of the rationales of people who are corrupt
Mm-mm.
is because they want to give their children, their family a better life, right?
Mm.
And you know, like their first priority is really their family, right? Right? So at by hook or by crook, bahala na basta kay ako ang mga anak maharuhay ilahang kinabuhi, makapaskwela ko nila sa mga ngilngig nga mga eskwelahan,
Mm.
makahatag ko nila og saktong kinabuhi nga ilang ganahan, nga akong ganahan para unta nako ako naka-enjoy kay for whatever reason, right? Dili man korap akong lolo ug lola, akong mama ug papa, di ba? Whatever the reason is, right?
Oh.
So that's how they some of them rationalize it.
Mm-mm.
And ang ikaduha pag yun, ang rationalization na for the politicians is dili mo gud mahimo gud nga di ka mangwarta kay lisod man kay ni mahal man kay ning politika. Kung di wa kay kwarta di jud ka kadaog sa election, so mangawat lang pud sila. That could also be another rationalization, right?
Yeah.
So kung dili ka mangawat, for example, unsa man na, like that's expected, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Ikaw ang
dili
dili.
man na, that you're not being celebrated, right?
Mm-mm.
Si Ralph, why nangawat? Have you ever heard of a politician that's celebrated for that?
I think no, not really.
Yeah, well, right?
Okay, it's not something necessarily to be celebrated when said okay.
Because that's what's expected,
That's
right?
what's expected of
Yeah,
you.
right?
Mm. So of course, dili na I celebrate because you're not supposed to be doing that in the
in the
first
first place, right? So why celebrate it, right? So maybe
Uh,
we should celebrate, right? That's why mo na importante ito illegalize kay maka-celebrate to wa na nga what, di ba? You know what I mean? It becomes like a mechanism because you did not take advantage of the allowed 10% corruption or you're close to zero, then you should be celebrated, right? Sakto
Pero
ba ko?
how does it not how do you stop it from becoming like an incentive for them to do it even more?
No, because na may ceiling.
A ceiling.
Na may ceiling. Kung mulapas ka, priso ka dito. So, mas sa kadako lang.
Oh, pero ang concept pa nila, anat nasa kana gingon nimo nga 10%, no?
Oo.
Let's say nga ang ilang na lang buhaton karon okay, this is what they've been doing for a while. Ilang i-balloon ang cost sa isa ka project para bahalag 10%.
Oh, sige. Okay
Okay
ra. Basta 10%. Basta inyo mo na, may problema. You know, I mean, at least ma-minimize. If you look at the what they're talking about, right? Like 40-60% goes to corruption.
Oh,
Di ba? Tapos 10% na lang. Can you imagine how much we're saving as a nation, right? Right? Think about that, man. Think about that for a while, right? Instead of 50-60%, only 10% is wasted and the whole amount is being used to build a thing that's supposed to be built, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's probably I don't know.
What are your thoughts, man? Kamo diyan, namoy suggestion, namoy solution ani atong problema nga corruption. You know, it's easy for us to say because we're not there, we're not in the room. But you know, if you're there in the room, unya naay kwarta sa imong ilawom sa imong lamisa nga 10 milyones, pag human sus imong sapatos busluto na, imong medyas baho na kay sanan niya. Sumugka ni kato sa ning dawaton para makapalit og sapatos ug medyas siguro yung sa tan-aw nimo. Dili ka matintal niya. And, you know, it's easy for us to say lagi ba, but and at the same time politics really costs a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right? So dili mahimo nga makachamba siguro kagwa kay kwarta, kanang chamba mahitabo magina sa politika. Dagan kay mga unusual results of the elections, right? Karong niaging election, di ba? But kana siya, I would consider that chamba. Pero kung balikon to nila, I don't know if it's gonna happen again, right?
Yeah.
Without a machinery, without the resources of the government or a political party, di ba? Lisod guys, tanan makachamba ka, pwede ka makaigo ka og slingshot sa usa ka higante like David and Goliath. But kung mabuhi pa to si Goliath, kibawon to sa ibuhaton niya sunod, di ba?
Yeah.
And he's going to destroy a small David that you are. And nakachamba lang ka ato, di ba? Nakakuan ka? That's not gonna happen twice kanang what David did to Goliath, di ba? Chamba man to siya. Kay murabag he was caught by surprise ba, di ba?
Yeah.
Pero kung mag-helmet ko, whatever, you know, magdakog, whatever, you know.
I don't think a helmet would have helped in that scenario.
Well, you know, like nasurtian sa siya nakaigo siya sa
ulog.
sa ulog yun nga na may helmet na to, di ba?
Oh, okay.
So it's also a lot of luck involved too, right?
Yeah, you could say luck or really good aim.
Pero na may mga kultura ba iba nga dili kayo corrupt. Ang I don't know. Maybe we're just
in the dark.
Imagining it. Pero na mga kultura, let's say, you know, nations like kaning mga Nordic regions, di ba? Kaning Singapore, for example, and other nations, di ba? Murag tanawar gun ang top 10 least corrupt nations in the world. Gun tanawar gun atong gun tanawon gun unsay what they have in common nga least corrupt nations in the world. Atong tanawon ba unsa may mga nasod nga dili corrupt ba tanawon ta na ba unsa may number 1.
Okay, tanaw na to.
And now, the number 1 least corrupt nation in the world is man?
Denmark.
See? Finland, di ba?
Singapore.
New Zealand, Luxembourg, Norway, so Nordic regions.
Kasagari
Di ba?
Oo.
So, ngano ka na sila nga dili na sila corrupt? O niya ang mura og unicorn diya ang unusual is Singapore, the only Asian nation, di ba? Niya kaning Singapore, very autocratic man sila, medyo stricto man ang society nila, di ba? Very strict, right? So, but Denmark and Finland, they're also kind of a social democracy, di ba?
Yeah.
Nga murag daggo kay sila mga taxes, di ba? Murag 50% ilang tax siguro, pero free education, free healthcare, and so on and so forth, di ba? And kani sila nga mga nasura, especially Denmark and Finland and New Zealand, Norway, they frown upon kaning excess bitaw. They frown upon ultra rich people, like mura kag inon ka ba nga anong kang daghan makay kag auto, anong man imong bahay nga dako man kay nastan. Mura bag they don't diri man gud sa ato ang nasod in the third world especially even in most of civilized society bro.
Mm.
Kuyawan yung kupuhan yung auto. 'Di ba? Kupuhan yung
Yeah,
balay,
yeah.
'di ba? Kupuhan yung kuyawan yung kaning, 'di ba? 'Di ba?
Mm.
We look up to that, right?
Yeah.
Because how did he get there, right? Like
Lagi.
we also aspire to be as rich as popular as social as that guy, right?
Yeah, lagi, most of us view ourselves as temporarily embarrassed millionaires.
Temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Anyway, I just look at my life as a painfully middle class life.
Mm-mm.
But it has its advantages, right?
Mm-mm.
Anyway, so the point is nga kani silang mga society they frown upon excesses of wealth.
Mm-mm.
Kanang what's wrong with you? Murag ana bitaw. In fact, one of their practices is ang ilang mga balay walay kortina. People can see inside their homes kuno.
Mm.
Murabag kaning I'm living a normal life, I'm murabag
Open life.
murag it's a kind of transparency ba.
Mm-mm.
Like I don't have like a vault here full of gold bullions whatever. You know what I mean? So murag transparent sila, like they're living average lives in terms of wealth. Of course, nagyapo yung mga gagmay siguro mga dato, pero dili as prevalent as kaning most democracies, right? Kay grabe naman yung kayo. Grabe naman yung kaya inequitable ang distribution of wealth na. Daghan naman kayo tag mga billionaires, di ba? In fact, dagingon sila nga more than half of the wealth of the world is controlled by the top 1%,
Yeah.
right? So grabe na jud kay ka inequitable ang distribution of wealth. And I don't know why we talked about that, but it has probably something to do with a kind of corruption, di ba? Kay ngano man nga pasubraan man nimo imuhang wealth, di ba? Ngano man pasubraan man nimo imuhang imuhang mga bahandi, ngano man na, di ba? Don't you think that there's something wrong with that also?
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see where you're
Is
coming
is
from.
that related to corruption? Kay kanang mga katulang gipakita ni sa TV o katong kontraktor nga kuyo kay maauto,
Yeah.
katong naipayong, gipalit na siya og sakyanan kuno kay naipayong nga nindot kay kita ka to.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, so murag ngano man like why do you have like a house of cars, man? Like there like 100 cars, right? Nga puting mahalo na nga
Lagi.
hundreds of millions kuno ang balor atong iyang mga sakyanan kuno, hundreds of
Lagi.
millions. Can you
Yeah.
imagine? Why do you need that?
Mm-mm.
Right? So do you think that it has something to do with that? Nga murag we celebrate wealth in society, so that's why people have a tendency to
display wealth.
to be corrupt because mura sila they want this and that. What do you think?
Yeah.
What has that got to do with corruption? Do you think it's related?
I think, yeah. I think yes. It definitely does have a correlation, but I don't know about causation though. Ang konpod probably when you were explaining that ang imong view earlier, one of the things that popped into my head was the fact nga the biggest driver of crime isn't actually poverty, it's relative poverty. So people who live in areas where in communities where everybody's like equally poor, there's very low crime there. But if you live in neighborhoods where you have poor people, people who live in abject poverty, and people who live in wealth and luxury, kay you'll see spikes of crime there. So yeah,
What is this statistic? It's a global statistic or is this a Philippine statistic?
no, I think it's a global thing,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I can definitely see.
So where'd you get that study? Who did that study? So
Kalimutan ko.
maybe you can look it up. Maybe let's look it up. So you're saying it's not about poverty, it's about relative poverty. So kung imuhang mga silingan parihara nimo, ngano imo man silang kawatan, di ba? Ngano imo silang iduot, di ba? Nga parihara man ta, di ba? So of course you feel a kind of kinship man to your ka-level, di ba? Di man ka manghilabot ni ana nila. So ang imuhang hilabtan ang mga naay kawatonon, di ba? Ang mga wat makag usa ka tawo nga pobre, di ba? Wa man siya mga bahandi nga tinaguan. So that's pretty normal if you think about it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's normal. Of course, you're right. Like, walay mangawat kung puros pobre,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah, lagi. And if you see people who live in, luxury compared to you, it's kind of like, it kind of, I can definitely understand it fostering kanang negative gani nga resentment and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah, of course, yeah. But by and large, I think most people look up to wealth, and they look up to wealth in the sense nga, they're proud that they have a rich friend, like mapicture ta kung makita tag sakyanan nga, Maserati or kanang Ferrari diha, makita mapapicture ta ba, di ba? Kay these are things that we covet too, di ba? And these are the
Mm-mm.
things that we desire too, but we can never have because we don't have the resources, right? And the and the finances. What do you have there?
So,
Relative poverty or economic inequality is a significant driver of crime by increasing relative deprivation and societal strain, compelling individuals to emerge or engage rather in criminal behavior to meet needs or resist social institutions. So, do you think is this related to corruption? Are you saying ang mga mangurakot ang mga pobre?
no, no, no,
Is
no.
that what you're
Of course,
saying? So,
no,
what does
no.
this have to do with corruption, and why did you bring this up?
Oh, I brought it up because you were explaining earlier nga ko, we see these like huge wealth
Wealth
disparity.
gaps, wealth
Yeah,
gaps.
it's huge,
Oh.
especially in the world today.
Mm.
You said that the top 1% control 50% of the entire world's
Yeah,
wealth.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm not saying that they're poor, but I feel like they're constantly comparing themselves to people wealthier than themselves, and
Mm.
it drives them to want more,
Mm.
even though they're already doing better than most people. They still
Mm.
want more.
Mm.
So
Okay.
I think that might have something to do with it.
So we're insatiable, right?
Yeah.
Most of us are not satisfied, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, once we achieve a certain something, we need to go to the next level, and it's
Yeah.
it's like a bottomless pit, di ba?
Mm-mm.
Wag tayo mahimo. So the trick here is to stop wanting,
Mm.
to stop wanting more, di ba?
Mm-mm.
And that's probably more impossible than stopping corruption, right?
Yeah, we have seen maybe like, there's always the exception to the rule kind of thing, but it feels like this is the normal para sa ato. Not
So
just
so
culture
so are you
Filipinos.
saying that corruption is normal? Are you murag, you're not very old, right? You just
Mm.
This is like your first year after graduation, right?
Mm-mm.
So have you been already jaded by what's going on around you? Ralph, do you feel nga corruption is hopeless in the Philippines? Do you feel nga, like my daughter always says, that's why I don't want to live here. She wants to migrate to the 10th least corrupt nation in the world. That's Australia, right?
Oh,
So
Australia,
yeah,
really?
so she has given up, and most of the
Mm-mm.
kids meaning my kids and
Yeah.
and people in their 20s who already have graduated have given up
Mm-hmm.
on the Philippines, and if they have the opportunity, they want to get the truck out of here and
Yeah.
live elsewhere in the top 10 least corrupt nations in the world,
Mm-hmm.
like New Zealand, for example,
Yeah.
or one of those, even Singapore. So have you?
Yeah. Unfortunately,
Oh, no.
yes.
Okay. Oh, why is that a clap? So that's better. So we have a comment here from Cliff Madera. Greed is the driver of all crime, corruption, and etc.
Mm.
So when did you give up?
Oh gosh. I think maybe uh, s- uh, senior high school man ata.
Nga naman.
Uh, it was then I learned a bit more about local politicians.
Senior high school.
Yeah,
Ano
local.
naman?
So local politicians na mo.
Okay.
Especially sa among din siguro na ako i-drop ang position niya kay
But asa maning lugar? Sa Mindanao?
yeah, sa Mindanao ni
Okay,
siya.
okay.
And
Nga naman, nganong medyo that was a catalyst for you to give up.
basically pretty much everybody sa barangay that I talk to has something bad to say about him. Nga, they know about his corrupt practices. They know about his his desire for
But
under-
doesn't that make you want to fight it even more because it's there and it's wrong? And as a young ideal person, wasn't that
Mm.
your automatic response to a situation like that? This must not have been the first time, right? Or was
yeah,
it the first
I
time?
mean, it's not the first time I heard about it, but it was the first time that I heard about it to that extent.
Okay, so nganong
Nga murag-
nganong nakagive up man ka because of that?
Oh, because I think it had something to do as well with the fact nga like we were gossiping about him sa balay sa akong friend,
Okay.
and uh we were basically we were talking a lot of smack about him, and then I guess I said something a little too loud, and my friend was like, shh, Chavez, shut up, are you trying to get me a family killed? And I was just there, and it was like in that moment, like I was like, wow, like the fact that not only is it more is it kind of an actual fear for them nga na ay retaliation, but the possibility that it could be your neighbor who like tells on you so that you'll be punished. It's like even
So
that's already a small level, like
kung
barangay.
kung honest ka, piligro na hinung ka, imong kinabuhi kay dili ka mangawat niya, dili ka mo appeal sa pangawat niya basig ipapatay ka.
Oh,
I-
at
i-
least mo lang
or at least
feeling that I got.
that's the feeling that you got. So mura kag outcast, murag di ba? Murag feeling nimo nga ako ra may galahi dito eh.
Oh, dili necessarily ako regalahi, pero kami man tanan, everybody there was like criticizing him and talking
Sana
about
all.
ang iyang mga mga unsavory nga pamatasan, how he likes to bribe families
Nya kani
into
siya, ang iyahang daghang kay siya mga sakyanan pod. Nya
Ah.
ang iyahang balay dako kay balay sad, ha?
Oh.
Ha?
Oh.
So mura kag na lose na lang kag hope because wa na kay mabuhat niya na.
Yeah, kind
Yeah,
of.
mura na hadlok nimo kasi for your life, right? So we have a take here from Joel Lim. He says it seems to me to imply for a year now that most of our problems come from colonialism. Actually, yeah, if Justin was here, she'd probably laugh her head off. Here's his hot take. Maybe we needed a few more decades to be colonized. Kuno? Maybe kuwang ra kuno, dili ko sakto. Maybe it was too soon for the Filipinos to be left on their own in 1946. We Filipinos as a whole are still immature. Actually, there's some truth to that. I think
Yeah.
we're still a relatively young democracy. How old are we as a democracy? Betanawa ra gud pila ta ka tuig. I mean, like relative to Europe, relative to the West, to the United States, and compared to those nations who are in the top 10 least corrupt nations in the world, number one being Denmark. How old are we as a democracy?
Well,
1945, di ba?
1946 ang atong kan.
So how old are we? Yeah, na ba atong i-compute be. Atong i-compute be. Sige. So 90 ano man ni? 2025 minus
81.
1946
81.
81. So we're still an 79-year-old democracy or more or less 80.
More or less.
Democracy. So bata pag kita tanan as a democracy. So we have not really matured yet as a nation is an excuse. Is that a good excuse? Do you think it's an excuse for a nation not yet to be
Sure.
mature, not yet matured to be corrupt?
Ooh, probably not.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a good enough excuse. Okay,
So
there are democracies
Sige,
nearby us that were able
Sige,
to
atong
pull
tanawon be.
ahead of us.
Tanaw to be. Katong number 1 be. Asa man to number 1 nga democracy least corrupt. Asa man to imong asa man to imong statistic nimo imong gitanaw ganiha. Oy, ganun awag man.
Na dire.
So
Dali,
there, Denmark. Tanaw,
Denmark.
how old is Denmark as a society be? Atong tanawon be. So the Philippines is 81 years old
As a society or
as a society,
democracy?
as a society, as a country. Yeah.
1,000 years old.
Denmark is 1,000 years old as a unified kingdom, emerging in the 8th century as solidified by the King Harold. Bluetooth. Oh,
Kuya was ba nga na?
how about
Oh.
democracy? Like when did they get independence? They're not even a democracy, right?
176
Oh, see?
years old.
So that's old, right? That's pretty
Mm-mm.
old, right? So that's
Yeah.
more than twice as old as we are.
Yeah.
So I think that's actually a good argument because you know, like ang mga tao wala pa kaayo sila nakasabot in the sense nga kadaghanan silang gipang butaran kay mga korap gihapon.
Mm-mm.
Dili pa sila ka-gets, but dili pa sila kabasa bitaw. And it helps, of course, that we're poor, right?
Yeah.
And what we need is food on our table, right? And
Yeah.
if there's money presented to you, then they will vote for you,
Dawaton,
di ba?
yeah, dawaton.
Kinsa may butaran nimo ang hatag nimo or wa, di ba? Think about that for a while, di ba?
Lagi.
And that's a
Oh.
very simplistic way of thinking about it. But if you're going to die because you have no food, kinsa may butaran nimo what's your vote going to matter? Is your vote going to matter if you're dead,
Yeah, lagi.
right?
Mm. Pero like I do agree nga maybe that does play into it. Pero why are there other democracies in Southeast Asia that were able to mature quicker than us?
Give me an example.
Uh,
Give me an example, because
it-
the Philippines
is
is 81 years old as a nation, as a democracy. So the number one Asian country in the top 10 least corrupt nations in the world is Singapore. So maybe you can find out when.
well, Singapore is one of them. It's
okay.
more or less 60.
Okay,
60
60 years
years
old.
old.
Yeah,
Mm.
but is Singapore a democracy?
Well, that's one thing, right? It's not necessarily a democracy.
Di ba hadlok gi ka malabig chewing gum dito, di ba?
Malaysia is 61 years old. And
But is it a democracy? Tanawa ko. Tanawa what kind of societies they are, because I think democracy, has its flaws too, and like Winston Churchill once said, it's the best that we got. Worst kind of government
Malaysia is
is a democracy.
democracy.
Okay, so
yes.
is Malaysia a progressive nation?
Mm,
Can you Google most progressive nations in Asia? Most progressive Asian countries in the world, or in Asia.
Asian
at-
countries in the world.
Atong tanawon, be. Somebody show more, please. Taiwan.
Taiwan, the Philippines, Indonesia, Japan.
Oh, nam laging Philippines lagi. Wa maging Malaysia diha.
Oh, wala ang Malaysia.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's your point? Your point is nga
There are some younger democracies that have managed to develop quicker than we have.
yeah, but we don't have an example exactly what, right?
Oh, well, isn't Malaysia one of them?
Is it a democracy? Is it
It
it's
was
not
considered a democracy, yeah.
it's not even there in the most progressive nations of the world, right? So
Yeah.
maybe they have other flaws, right? Maybe are they not corrupt?
It's a representative democracy, though.
So are they a non-corrupt society? Is that what you're saying? Why did you bring?
No,
Why did you bring up?
I'm not saying they're.
Why
they're
did you
not
bring up?
corrupt.
Why did you bring up Malaysia?
Well, it's
They're
one of
not.
the-
They're young. They're younger than the Philippines, but are they less corrupt? So because that's what it means, right? If you, my contention is that part of our the reason why we're corrupt is because we're still young, right? And youth has its fits and starts, right? We're very confused yet as a people, right? So if you're comparing it to Malaysia, so if they're younger by 21 years, which is a lot in human years, but not so much in terms of countries' years, democracies' years, right? So if is Malaysia a corrupt? Maybe you can Google that. Least corrupt nations of the world. Asian nations. Let's do that. Let's atong hisgutan ato mga silingan. Tanaw nato unsay mugawas diha. Kung naamoy kadalit sa among conversation, please join us 0999-8876-070. Maayong buntag sa atong mga kaigsunan nga nagdi-appeal sa atong conversation to Joel Lim. And kinsa paning uban diri nga ni-appeal sa atong conversation, daghang salamat sir ug ma'am. If you want to join us, please. I want to be able to have a good, productive conversation with you guys and tell us about how you feel about corruption and how we can probably solve it. According to ambisyoso kaysa solve magyud. Ang akong suggestion na gyud is to legalize corruption. Mura gid na akong solution. Abot nimo diha, naba mo solution diha si Raf, wa may solution pa, wa pa man siya concrete nga solution. Asa man ang Malaysia be.
Well,
where is Malaysia?
Way further up than we are.
Okay, least corrupt ni siya.
One of
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13,
14th least
14.
corrupt. Pero taas kasi lang ang box, ha? 49 na day.
This is like by worldness yan ya ang kaning mga positions kay by
Okay.
world niya per kani kay by Asia kaning nga category,
Mm.
and the Philippines is all the way down here.
So the Philippines is beside what? Unsa man
Philippines is beside
Sri Lanka,
Sri Lanka,
og nabiha
Mongolia.
ng ka backwards na kina mga society asa. If you think about it, Sri Lanka and Mongolia, I think Mongolia is in Africa, right? Sakto ba ko?
No, isn't it above China, Mongol?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry. So yeah.
Yeah.
So there must be something about us that makes us corrupt, right?
Yeah.
Kuwang matod pa ni Joe William lagi kuwang
pa.
pata colonization, right?
By a few decades.
Oh.
So,
Diba somebody once said, one of our leaders nga, it's better to be a nation run like hell by Filipinos than a nation run by Americans, run like
paradise by
paradise,
Americans.
right? Something like that,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, it was. I think it was.
Was it ML Quezon who said that, or some dead guy, right?
It was. I think it was our first president.
Quezon, right?
Yeah, Quezon.
Is it Manuel Quezon?
Yeah, it was. I think it was
Oh
Quezon.
my God. So yeah.
And I think I remember nga kan my grandfather sa father's side nako sa family, he said nga that cursed us though. He said that saying niya nga, I'd rather have a country run like hell by Filipinos than run like paradise by foreigners. That cursed us though.
You know, one of the biggest things about the Philippines is we're so spread out, right? We're like an archipelagic nation, 7,127 or whatever number islands we have in the Philippines, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's a factor? Do you think that's why it's so difficult to govern, to rule the Philippines, because we're archipelagic and we're separated not just by ideologies and religion but also by physical separation
barriers,
by waters
water
and mountains, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that's a factor? Nga murag left to our own devices, people will, if nobody's looking, people will steal.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor, because if there's one thing I can I think about when I think about the Nordic nations,
Mga Norway, Denmark, ano?
yeah, it's ang level of social cohesion ganit nila. I
Okay,
think
walang
yeah.
equitable ang society nila, di ba?
Yeah, equitable, and Guan said they I think there's really less internal conflict in those countries. At least from what I've heard.
Yeah,
I'm not
you're
sure
right.
about
I can imagine a society that is very equitable and wealth is equally distributed is a more peaceful society, because like you don't feel like you're being aggrieved. You don't feel like you're a victim and so on and so forth, right? But if a society is so kaning layo kay ang disparity between the rich and the poor, they feel like they've been robbed of something, right? Cheated on or whatever, right? So mas sensitibo gini ang mga tao nga mura og they're poor ba, di ba?
Yeah, I can definitely relate. It's really hard to feel like you're not being taken advantage of in these kind of when you see these kinds of wealth disparities.
If you want to join our conversation, please join us at Tops Media Center on TikTok, on YouTube, and on Facebook. We're talking about corruption, the most difficult topic and most difficult problem to solve. I don't think we have any illusions to solve this problem before the morning ends, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But just to talk about it, right? I think mo maguna ba? I think talking about something is the beginning of facing it, and maybe even eventually solving it, right? Because as long as we don't talk about it, then it'll continue, right? Kung ato nang i-expose, if we expose it to sunlight, if we expose it to the people, then maybe there's a better idea compared to my stupid idea of legalizing corruption, right? But there's what do you think? Is that the best idea so far? What do you think? Do you have a better idea?
I don't know if I have a better idea, but I definitely can't. I don't know. Dili ko maka-agree jud sa
yeah,
legalizing.
I know. But what you can't disagree and not have a placeholder. You can't disagree and say, so if it's not legalization, what is it in a word?
Ah, yeah.
And don't give me implementation because I think we've tried that, right? We've tried that.
Better implementation.
Better implementation. Sa muka gyud ang implementation. And it's really about culture, I think.
Yeah.
Kanang kultura gid ba? Kay kung if we look up to wealthy people, then we will want to become them, right?
Mm-mm.
Right?
Yeah, and besides that,
And the wealthier they become, the more we look up to them. So it's also gives them incentive, right?
yeah, napod na.
Right.
And it's just like we've also already built up a culture of corruption here in the Philippines.
That's
So
why
unsaon na-
culture is so difficult to change, right?
Unsaon na nato pag break down.
And again, I'm that's why we're having this conversation because it's out there. People are talking about it. All these
Mm-mm.
politicians are so against it, especially the younger politicians,
Yeah.
right? Eh, kaning mga younger politicians, wala pa man ni sila na nagkalapok, di ba?
Oh.
One of my theories good is this, and I've said this many times, a long time ago. Ingon ko nga, kanang mga batanon nga politician, they're the best because they have not, wa pa sila nagkalapok.
Mm.
Yeah, pero ang challenge na, and somebody has to prove me wrong pa, kadaghanan sa mga politiko nga nagsugod ug bata pa sila, ini katiguwang na nila, manggawas na ang ilahang mga labok, manggawas na ilahang mga apan, manggawas na ilang they can't help but join the culture. They get, as I want to say, as I would like to put it, they become more they get swallowed by the system and they become one of them. Kay di man ka mahimo ba nga mo rise above the ranks ka of politics kung dili ka makisama, kung dili ka mubuhat sa ilang gibuhat, di ba? So ikaw kung if you're a smart politician and if you want to rise above politics, then you have to join them.
Mm-mm.
You can't be like, I don't want to do that. Di ba?
Lagi.
Di ka makisama, di ba? Ikay ngilad, sakto ka. Ikay ngilad kung dili ka mangawat.
Lucky. And it's just like you said, it's what you said before nga. This has been the proven strategy for success.
Correct,
So
yeah.
everybody is going to want to recreate that.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do? Legalize it. Legalize it.
Just
I've actually had this idea for a long time.
Mm-mm.
Like this is not something new. I brought this up in many coffee tables and bars.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, man. People just laugh it off, man. And finally, I'm putting this idea out there. There must be a version of this that that's probably implementable and realistic.
Mm-mm.
But I think it all starts with culture, and culture takes a long time to change.
Yeah.
And if we are to start culture, I think it starts in the schools, right? But ang eskwelahan, di ba? Like mga leakage, di ba? Mga leakage, nakahinumdum ko, nakadungog ko. We were having a reunion with my classmates. Nakahinumdum ko nga naay usa ka maestra sa among eskwelahan nga pabayad ko abo nga sa.
Oh my god.
Ana bitaw like I'm sure you see that in school, right? I mean,
Yeah.
without having to mention anyone in particular, do you see a kind of corruption in school?
Well, you could even argue the whole kanang sharing of mga kodigo among the students.
That is corruption, right?
That is corruption.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's widely accepted and some people even actively defend it. Nga
Say mo defend how do you defend leakage day or kan kodigo?
ang kanang kodigo, it's just because ang usual na akong nadunggan is like, well, naman jud ang atong grading system karon, it doesn't actually favor learning, it just favors good test scores.
Correct. That's actually correct. Yeah.
And so these students who are being pressured on all ends to achieve certain test scores, it's understandable that they'd want to cheat to ensure this.
Yeah.
Something
So
along
kanang
that.
inana, for example, that classic example. I'm sure we know that. You know that. The whole educational system knows that, right? So how can we fix that, right? We need to fix that.
Yeah. And
Kana maglagot pito kana sakto juga ba kanang ang incentive for the students is to gamify the system and not to learn but to have a higher score.
Yeah.
Ang mga eskwelahan po karon ang measure of a success of an educational institution is a percentage of passing rates.
Mm-mm.
Diba? So 100% passing, you know.
Yeah, lagi.
So mo di ako maskwela kay para makapasar ko. But
Mm-mm.
passing is not necessarily learning, right? But
Mm-mm.
passing man good means that you'll get a job,
Yeah.
right? That
Yeah.
you'll have the life that you went to the career that you wanted and went to school for, right?
Mm-mm.
So that's everything, right?
Yeah, lagi.
That's everything. To get a job is everything.
Yeah. And who knows Jude, how we're going to be able to change that in schools. I did hear like mga standout cases of like professors and teachers who really like brought about change sa ilang classrooms by I think I forgot his name, but it was like a teacher in the States who taught in an inner city school, and these inner city schools kumaning mga unfortunately mga crime ridden schools where students they're not really engaged pud sa classes, a lot of them, and you know there's unfortunate gang violence cases in these inner city schools as well. And ang iyang class, he took a class that was failing its math horribly, they were all failing horribly, and he managed to instill in them a studying fervor that helped all of them pass their state's local exams. So maybe we do actually need those, like you said, kanang mga rock star teachers that everybody looks up to, and
Yeah.
they actually have a huge impact with the students.
Kita atong rockstar rin mga dato man, di ba? Right.
Unfortunately.
We celebrate them, right?
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with being rich, right? But it depends on how, of course, how you became rich, right?
yeah, and we're basically idolizing.
Well, let me rephrase that. I think there's inherently something wrong with being have too much resources, right?
Yeah.
Especially if the world is suffering, right? I think that there is a kind of acceptable wealth, I guess, right?
yeah, katalaga gingon nila nga the difference between millionaires and billionaires.
What is that? What's the difference?
Like basically, like if you stack $1 million on top of each other, you will reach this height. If you stack $1 billion around each other, you might have to go around the world in order for you to.
Na magiingon nila nga law of diminishing returns ba nga there's a study that I read a long time ago nga the average amount that a person needs to have to live a decent and good middle class life is $100,000 annually, right? And of course that was a long time ago, so you have to adjust for inflation.
Yeah.
But more or less there's an amount. Anything after that, there's the law of diminishing returns nga masig na kay 1 million na, pero ang imong kalipay dili na kayo layo sa bare minimum bitaw. So the more you climb up the ladder, the less enjoyment you derive from your wealth, right? But kaning mga tao sa gud naghimo mo sa ning butang nga mahalon sa kayo nga nindot sa kay paliton. So kung dato na kay kasan mo palit kag yate, palit kag yacht, di ba? Mo palit kag
Yeah,
yacht nga like I don't know, like or cruise ship ang gidakon, palit kag private jet, di ba?
Oh, lagi mga nana.
So mga butang nga naa ba baligya ba? So kung ikaw sad kung dato ka naay baligya na kapalit ka, so naay kay but temporary mo sa nagod. The high of something new is very temporary.
Yeah, it is.
You notice your new shoes, right? It's new, like you like it, you feel good, and then after a while, like
It's just my shoes.
It's just a shoe, right? Same thing with cars, maybe longer, pero like after a while, pula na pagka, palit na pagkaglain kay dili na uso imong sakinan. So it's just very temporary ba.
And some people even just like buy cars to add it to their collection.
Yeah.
Nara dira. Just collecting dust,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Anyway, it's easy for us to say because we're not there, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God! So that's it for us. I think that's I hope we scratch the surface about this very ambitious topic, corruption. And some beginning corruption, is it only corruption because we're not part of it? Are we really fighting against it? Is that really something that we dislike? And is it something that society should completely and totally eliminate? Is that even possible? Is it possible there are classic examples of the Nordic region, Nordic nations, nga tong Denmark, Norway, right?
Mm-mm.
Sweden, even Switzerland, Singapore, nga, they're very, they're not corrupt, right?
Mm.
So, what is it that we look up to about them that makes them not corrupt? Is it the maturity of the nation? Is it their form of government? Is it their colonial past, right? And sakto gini si Joel Lim, kung napa si Justin Alvius taring buntaga, may katawag gini siya kay ang among atong pasanginlan gid pirmi ang atong colonial
Colonial
past ra gyud.
past,
Mao ra
oo.
gyud atong pasanginlan kay convenient man god
Yeah.
because we don't have to take it up blame ourselves well.
Yeah, lagi.
Blame somebody else, right?
Yeah, lagi.
So mga kaigalan, that's it for our conversation. Actually, you can still join the conversation on YouTube. The video will be up
Mm-mm.
on
And Facebook.
Facebook. Ang TikTok mo it has to be down, right? Kinsa man itong naminaw sa atong ni-join sa atong TikTok. Can you mention their names before we end this?
Oh.
Kinsa man ni si
Hello sa atong mga viewers di ay.
Kinsa ni Charito Sanchez? Parinti na nimo dili.
Dili. Di mo ko Sanchez.
Di ka.
Oh.
Sige.
So na si Charito Sanchez, si Trixie Joy, Chrissy,
Mm.
Ariel Hermida, Al John, Mark, Kimmy Shop,
Mm.
Vanilla Latte,
Mm.
Mr. Zach, Dad's Key, Desiree,
Mm.
Marie, Vanilla Latte again, Jason Manalang, Joyce Ann Rocamora, Angel De Chavez, De Chavez,
Kinsa man na siya?
Shiminette, FT Franny Diaz, Forbers Cares, Tina Trixie Joy, Hummer Home Products, Jazz Ogsi Ruth Ariola.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, we have one more comment pa dahil
Go
sa
ahead, go ahead,
atong
go ahead,
kan-
go
sa
ahead, go
atong live sa Facebook Live. Di ka ni Kuya Magic.
Oh, kinsa man
Ye-
na si Kuya Magic?
Ah.
Magician na siya or taga-lain ng stasyonan ng taga-Magic? Kinsa man na siya?
I think he's a magician.
Magician. We're just kidding, Kuya Magic. We love you. We miss you. I hope you get well soon, bro.
Yeah.
In England, corruption is done at the royalty level.
Ooh,
Oh.
that's the problem.
Oh my God. Anyway, that's it for us. Stay tuned for more of Cebu's and the Philippines' best music here on 105.1 TMC. I think this is really the root of it all. If you have to look for a symbol, it's really all about kwarta. Red Groove Rhythm.